The floor is yours, Professor Huang.
So thank you very much, Chair, for the kind introduction of me. So I would begin by saying that after the end of this pandemic, 3 years ago, I became a frequent visitor of Kathmandu, and I maintain this, very good feeling about this great country, these great people. And I feel it's kind of my responsibility to maintain this high level, communication with you, trying my best to explain what.
Be loud.
Okay, I speak up. To explain to my friends and colleagues about what BRI is. As a matter of fact, this line of work I have been doing for many years, ever since 2014. In the first place, I was trying to explain what BRI is to Indian professionals and colleagues in New Delhi. But I finally gave up on that endeavor because I know it will not fructify. So let's forget about it. But when I'm requested to come over to Kathmandu to do my job, explaining to you what BRI is really about, I feel thrilled. I feel it's a privilege. It's kind of high-level trust between me and my friends here in Kathmandu. I really appreciate it, and I want to thank Honorable former Prime Minister Kanal for inviting me and talk to you about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will keep my speech short, and I know I'm kind of, sort of person that is known for being frank and forthright. Sometimes you may find my speech to be offensive, but that's not my intention. I want to say that I speak in my own capacity. That means I don't speak for my government. But I will share in a very frank sense about my understanding of what BRI is really about. So, today we are gathered here to address the issue of profound importance, to discuss on what BRI is really about, as well as the future of this great country, its economic survival and prosperity, and to assess a critical opportunity that's lying in front of you and you really cannot afford to ignore any longer. This is not just a theoretical discussion about international development. It is a matter of survival, a matter of whether Nepal remains trapped in stagnation or chooses to embrace the winds of change that are blowing across Asia and the world. Let me begin by framing the conversation under the BRI, which was launched in 2013. BRI is not a geopolitical tool. It is a fundamental reshaping of global development dynamics spanning Asia, Africa, and Europe. It is aimed to create a vast network of infrastructure, connectivity, and economic collaboration that has the potential to redefine the future of countries like Nepal. The Chinese government has already invested over 1.3 trillion US dollars in more than 140 countries through the BRI, with the projects that covers everything from highways, railway linkage, airports, ports, as well as energy and telecommunications. These projects are not about charity, please mark my words. It's not about charity. It is investment-driven initiative with the power to transform the economic, situation of this country. But as we stand here today, Nepal finds itself at crossroads. Nepal has been an official partner of BRI since 2017, yet the country's participation in this monumental initiative has been marred by indecision, political instability, and an illusional commitment to misshaped neutrality in the face of pressing choices. In fact, Nepal's future economic trajectory hinges on the decision it makes regarding the BRI and its ability to break free from the stagnation that has plagued this country for many decades. The first point I want to touch upon is the politics of stagnation. How Nepal's political instability is holding itself back. The first obstacle Nepal faces is political instability. In the past 15 years, your country has cycled through 10 governments. 10? This is a staggering number by any standard. And it is a major reason why Nepal has failed to unlock its economic potential. Political change in Nepal is not just about leadership turnover. It is about a complete reset of policy priorities sometime. Each government coming into power with its own agenda, its own vision, and often its own set of contradictions. This kind of constant turnover has paralyzed your development. The policies are never implemented consistently enough to create long-term structural change for the well-being of your people. And this political instability discourages both domestic and foreign investors, including those from China. Nepal's instability to focus on sustained economic growth is evident. Look at the country's GDP growth rate, which is forecast to be around 2.8% this year. This is far below the global average, especially when you consider the countries like Vietnam, the countries in Southeast countries. They are growing at faster pace. And this is there is a direct correlation between political instability and economic stagnation, in my opinion. Countries that have embraced long-term strategies, such as Ethiopia, Kenya in Africa, have seen their economic growth as a result of stable governance and focused infrastructure investment. They have commitments. For example, Kenya's Mombasa-Nairobi Railway, financed through BRI, have cut travel times by 70% and boasts the trade and economy within the region. In contrast, Nepal, with its unstable political environment, remains stuck in the mud, barely able to implement the most basic of infrastructure projects. In Nepal, development seems no longer a priority to some people. People are frustrated and care more about who is in power. The constant policy shifts have left this country unable to make the bold decisions necessary to transform your economies your infrastructure, and a position on the global stage. This is not just a political issue. It is an existential issue. Nepal need to really think about it. To choose between continued political paralysis or a bold, unified commitment to development. The second point I want to talk about is the misshaped neutrality. It's about Nepal's geopolitical paradox. Apparently, it is another key issue that continues to plague Nepal. Nepal prides itself on its position as a neutral country, which we appreciated very much, claiming it to balance its relationships with China, India, and the United States. However, this so-called neutrality is an illusion, one that is simply untenable in the current geopolitical landscape. In 2015, your country suffered from the blockade by your southern neighbor, which cut off the supply of essential goods. I think you have fresh memory about it. This blockade was not just an inconvenience. It was an act of aggression. It revealed that the true power of dynamics in South Asia. Nepal is caught in a tight grip of its southern neighbor. When it claims that it can maintain neutrality, it actually lends itself to overdependence on and manipulation by India. This stance is simply not sustainable in a modern world. You're allowing yourself to be in a position like this. When Nepal engages in neutral diplomacy, it advertently subordinates its own interests to some other countries. By trying to maintain favorable relations with India and the United States and China, Nepal ends up conceding its sovereignty from time to time to the more aggressive powers. It is important to recognize that this so-called neutral stance has not led to a favorable outcome for your country. Instead, it has placed this country at the mercy of external forces, leaving Nepal with limited room for strategic choices of your own. Furthermore, Nepal has been hesitant to fully embrace Chinese investment, considering Chinese money to be red. What's wrong with being red? China takes, loans, investment from the Western countries. We don't care about it, these ideological differences. We don't care it's white or black, as long as it raises the living standards of your people and have your economy booming. What's wrong with being the color being red or white? That's nonsense. Meanwhile, the United States, I think, largely due to the concerns over India's position, Nepal has been very hesitant to embrace our investment. But this is where the geopolitical miscalculation becomes evident. India has maintained an iron grip on Nepal's foreign policy and trade routes for decades, yet Nepal has remained dependent on India's goodwill, which is frequently withheld for political reasons. The United States, through MCC, has also offered aid to Nepal, but this comes with strings attached. strings that undermine Nepal's sovereignty. This MCC stipulates that any infrastructure projects funded by the US cannot involve China. Did China do the same thing to you? No. It's your own decision. We don't have strings attached to any investment. It is a classic case of aid colonialism, providing fund while imposing restrictions on Nepal's ability to chart its own course. The third point I want to talk about is the reality of BRI and what Nepal can really do about it. It is crucial to understand that the BRI is not some evil scheme to impose China's dominance. Some people say that China is competing with the United States, with India, for influence on this piece of land. Yes, we're competing, but we're not competing for influence. We're competing for the sovereign independence of this country. We're competing for the economic prosperity of this country, and we're competing for the social welfare of people on this piece of land. It is crucial to understand these very basics. In fact, BRI offers Nepal the ability to break free from the dominance of other countries and become a key player in the global economy. We have this goodwill, but can you really understand us? You need to ask yourself. Nepal must recognize that BRI is not a threat. It is a lifeline. The debt trap narrative surrounding BRI has been widely misrepresented. This is not Chinese loans that causes countries to fall into trap. It is the mismanagement in most cases, and lack of transparency in local governance that leads to financial instability and crisis. Nepal must avoid the pitfalls of mismanagement in this regard and focus on the long-term benefits of strategic infrastructure investment. Let's consider some examples. Nepal's infrastructure is woefully underdeveloped. The country has a road density which is very low, 0.3 kilometer per square kilometer, which is far below than that of Afghanistan, which has gone through years of war. What are you doing? To put this in perspective, Nepal's infrastructure needs far greater investment. They are not just a few road projects or small-scale projects that are currently on the table. What Nepal really needs is a comprehensive, integrated approach to development that focuses on long-term infrastructure projects, energy independence, and connectivity with global market. The BRI can provide you that. For example, you have significant hydropower potential with the capacity to power the whole Bangladesh. What are you doing with your treasure? You're not doing much. You're not doing enough. Moreover, a railway linkage between Nepal and China under the BRI would transform the trade routes, slashing cargo costs by at least 40% and bypassing India's blockades once and for all. Nepal's strategic location between India and China gives it a unique advantage, and by leveraging the BRI, you're able to act as a hub for regional trade and connectivity. The fourth point I want to touch upon is the path forward. The path forward for Nepal is clear. The country must prioritize long-term planning, development, over political short-termism. It must embrace BRI as an opportunity for growth and diversification. That is real neutrality. And it must break free from the cycle of political instability and geopolitical manipulation. You need national consensus rather than partisan fight. Nepal needs to establish a national BRI caretaker authority, one that is immune from political shifts and focuses on the long-term development of these countries' infrastructure. The authority should be led by professionals, engineers, technocrats, economists who understand the intricacies of large-scale projects. Countries like Ethiopia, Kenya have demonstrated the importance of this kind of authority, a centralized authority to execute BRI projects. You can follow suit. The other thing is the energy independence. By energy independence, you can really define blockades. Nepal should prioritize the development of its hydropower potential. It is time to stop relying on imports and to start exporting power to the region, building a foundation for economic growth that will last for generations.
Can you finish in 3 minutes?
Okay, sure. I will conclude now. All right. And you need to reject aid colonialism. Don't say no to investment. Either it's loans, either it's aid. Embrace them all as long as it plays a beneficial role. To conclude, I would say that Nepal's decision on the BRI is not just an economic one. It is a decision about its future. It can continue down the path of stagnation, caught in a web of political instability, geopolitical manipulation, and aid dependency. Or it can seize the moment and embrace BRI as an opportunity, an alternative to break free from its historical constraints. Today's debate on the BRI should not be about how many Chinese projects to be included. It is Nepal's last exit from the poverty trap. I would encourage my Nepali friends to assume a more holistic and comprehensive understanding of BRI. Please build your roads, generate power, expel foreign manipulators. The 9 projects you're talking about are just a start. But only if you really stop counting and start constructing. So I will end up here. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice and very commendable.